Hey there guys, it's AERODYNAMICS here, and I'm bringing you a quick little video. Quite a few of you have been asking me in the past week or so to maybe talk about my setup, and instead of maybe talking about it in every different career mode, I thought I'd just bung it into one little episode because really I'm not that amazing at F1 or mainly racing games. I don't like to tamper with setups too much, but I do have a basic layout that I like to use for every single race, and I kind of tamper it to each sort of track. So my usual baseline that I'll just do straight up without even thinking about what track it is changing the alignments. So camber front, I like to put it 2 clicks to the right, and the camber rear 1 click to the right. And this is just generally because, as you can see by the description, it just gives you a much better turn in, and also it just decreases front tire wear. Now usually people like to put it all the way here because it gives them much better front stability and stuff like that, but I prefer more actual cornering grip instead of actual stability. Like, I'd rather have a better turn in and kind of have to maybe correct myself and kind of get myself out of a spin than having more tire wear and stuff like that. So that's generally what I do. I leave the toes just as they are. I don't like to tamper those. Yeah, so that's what I do for alignments. Gears, I'm gonna get back to that. Suspension, now this is what I usually do. Now if it's a track where it's quite aggressive, a lot of different turns, and I'm just feeling in a punchy mood, then I'll do 3 and 9. And this is because this is my own style. Like, I don't know what your style would be. My style is quite aggressive. I like a lot of oversteer because I like to have that feeling when you're turning in with the car, it's going to do it immediately and maybe a bit earlier. And for me, that gives me enough time to maybe correct myself and kind of stop turning as much to correct the oversteer. And that's just generally how I feel. Like I literally hate understeer, sorry. And that's why when I do get it sometimes, like in the British Grand Prix, I think in season 1 of my career mode, I really struggled because I just don't like understeer at all. And strangely, I love oversteer. So usually people like to go in the middle, because that's what you generally do. You don't want either or. But I really don't mind a lot of oversteer. And the front springs are usually, I'll just leave them like this when it's dry. When it's getting a bit wet, I might put them up to 7.7. And if it is a wet qualifying and it's going to be a wet race, then I'll bump this up to 5 and leave this one at 9. And that still gives me some nice oversteer, but you're not going to spin off every corner in the wet. And then generally when it's a track where it's not so aggressive, maybe let's think about it, Brazil maybe, I put it for 4.8, but the thing is, as you can see, I'm doing it all the same sort of, starting from 6.6, I'm going 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1 and 2, so 3.9, then 4.8, then 5.7, and then 6.6. So I'm just going up left and right by 1s each time, just because it balances out. It gives you a balance. If you go too much sort of one way, then that does give you a lot of really dramatic changes to the car. And usually people like to go really low right height, but this is my thinking on how also it should sort of be. Like, they're talking about the Red Bull controversy of how they do their rake system and how low their front wing is. Now, if you don't know what a rake system is, but basically it's the car rake. So if you look at an F1 car from the side on, the rake is the angle that the car is sitting on its tyres on. So you have the tyres and they're in a fixed position. So if you just rotate the car left and right, and that's changing the ride heights and the rake that they run at. And Red Bull run a very high rake at the rear, which means their rear ride height is quite higher than their front ride height, and that allows their front wing to be lower and get a lot of air in and get some downforce there and pump it around the car. And their rear one is quite high, so also in high speed corners the air is hitting that rear wing and getting more downforce. But also it just creates a much better car in the corners, whereas although it does lack in frontline speed, like I must admit, I don't cater for frontline speed at all. Usually you'll see me in career mode struggling without DRS on the straights when there's a car within 1 second of me, because I just don't have enough frontline speed, and that's because I use a rake line like that to get plenty of downforce in the corners. It does generate oversteer, but not as much as you'd think. Obviously, it says here in the description clearly it will do oversteer, because it says a higher value yields more understeer. So obviously the opposite would be oversteer. But really, if you actually try it out, it doesn't do. If I really think about it, it doesn't actually put that much oversteer. It just means that I feel more comfortable in the corners. So yeah, that's suspension. Balance, it usually goes 6.5 once I start messing around with the suspension. I like to keep it at that sometimes. When it's getting a bit wet, then I might just, you know, kind of put it in the middle and be safe. But apart from that, I don't really like to mess around with anti-roll a lot. Braking, this is maybe one you guys would be interested in as well. Pressures, I like to keep it to medium. Brake size, well, this is just to do with additional wear and kind of stopping power. Really, I've only actually had to tamper with this once, and you only usually get to tamper with it, you know, when you're like at the top team and the #1 driver. And I've only had to tamper it once, so I think I was just testing it out in practice in Malaysia, because I just wasn't getting enough stopping power. But usually I just keep it at these two. And for braking, usually I like to just put it one click to the right, put a bit more on the tiny bit, you know, I'm literally talking a percentage on the rear. It's hardly enough to do anything, but basically, as it says, rear bias leads to more oversteer on the braking. So that tiny little percentage just makes me feel a bit more comfortable. Sometimes when it's a really kind of like winding corners, like Brazil, I might put it all the way to 3% to the right. But you don't want to do like extremes like that, or the other way around to the front, because as it says as well, brake distance will be longer in both instances. So you want to like keep that sort of steady. And aerodynamics, so basically the front wing and rear wing angle, usually I keep this at 6.6, the standard that it stays with when you start the standard setup. When it's tracks where there's a few straights that you could utilise, I like to put it to 5.5. When it's stuff like maybe Canada, in my career mode that I should be uploading earlier today, then I like to put it to 4.4, and that's pretty much the limit I put on. I never go to 3s, or I never go up to like, I might go up to 8.8s for full wets, 7.7s for intermediate weather, but I never go up to like 9.9 or 10.10. So again, sort of my setups are usually never extreme in both cases. So yeah, and then basically let's go on to specific sort of tracks. So like Melbourne's sort of kind of like a mid-stage one. Yeah, there's not a lot of, you know, differences, so I usually just keep my standard setup going. So different suspension there. For Melbourne, I might put it to 4.8 because it's not very twisty and turny. Balance, again, put that back to what it was. Braking there, and aerodynamics, probably 5.5. It's got a few straights. And so Malaysia, probably the same, probably 5.5. Maybe if I'm feeling, you know, if it's going to be a completely dry race, I might go for 4.4. China, 4.4 again, or 5.5, doesn't really matter too much. And pretty much just the next few tracks are sort of all the same. Really, guys, there's not much difference. I'm not really amazing at setups. Like I could, if someone told me how to do a perfect setup to this track and they got some ridiculous time, like you find with the forums, if I tried that setup, I probably wouldn't go as fast. But the simple fact is, I wouldn't like that setup because I'm sort of like, I'm quite picky in terms of how I like the car to feel. I'd rather have a nice feeling in the car and be a bit slower than be mega fast and just be uncomfortable all the time with the car. I must say one thing, at Monaco, the game changes. Basically, what you need to do at Monaco, I found, is it really helps, even when it's dry. Just ignore what I'm about to, like what it says on the screen right now, what I'm about to do. But this is what you should do. When it's at Monaco, at least what I found is, even when it's dry, in the qualifying and the practice, you can try it out in the practice if you don't believe me. If you just change it all the way to complete wet setup, yeah, lowest top speed, highest downforce, just leave it at that. Leave it like that. And then what I would do personally, I like to change the cambers back to what I like them to, and pretty much just leave it like that. Maybe change the braking, one click to the right again, but apart from that, leave it like that, and then just go out on Monaco, because you need so much downforce, and it really helps to counteract any sort of spins you might get from the lack of traction. And yeah, that just really helps me in Monaco, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, there's not much to my setups really. I'm not even lying. I use that sort of baseline setup for every single track. Probably should start tinkering around if I want to get better, but I'm quite stubborn that way, and it's going to take some time for me to actually maybe start fiddling around with it. Gearboxes, I've never fiddled around with them. If you go back to standard here, so average, yeah, I pretty much just leave it at that. I can't, I really do not know what I'm doing in terms of gearing. You know, once you start fiddling around with gears, then there's sort of the possibility of getting an engine failure and stuff like that. I might, you know, for stuff like Spa or Monza or even Canada, you know, I'd like to put it maybe one click to the right, or even two in some cases if it's Monza. Or sometimes, you know, it's the other way around. On Monza, I might, you know, even put it one down. And, you know, if it's going to be a position where I think I'll definitely get pole, then I'll want to put it one click to down, which basically means that the 7th gear is a bit shorter, but I get better acceleration once I get into that 7th gear, which means I'm maxing out the 7th gear faster. Just gives me better acceleration, and if I'm going to qualify in pole, I'll want that because I can get out the DRS. But apart from that, I really just leave the gears. Really honestly, guys, if you want some good setups, I would really recommend going to some forums. I might try and find one and put it down in the description. But really, that's my sort of setup baseline. I don't really like to look at the forums and stuff like that. I just go with that baseline, just because I feel comfortable with it. Really, you guys need to find some sort of setup that makes you comfortable, that makes you feel happy. That, you know, it should be a setup that you could happily drive for, you know, 25, 50%, 100%. I don't know what you guys race. But whatever you race, you should be comfortable with it the whole time. There shouldn't be a sort of, oh crap, I'm not liking this section, or, you know, you should be comfortable the whole time. And I feel like, you know, I'd rather be comfortable and going a bit slower than going much faster and being a bit uncomfortable. But there you go. I don't know if that was helpful to any of you. Really, my main message is just you know, tamper with it, but don't go extremes. Keep it in the middle. You know, keep it balanced. Like suspension, keep it balanced. If you're going to go 2 clicks to the left here, then go 2 clicks to the right there. Just keep it balanced, because once you start doing extremes like this, it just gets a bit, you know, a bit too much. And cambers, really, each to their own. Really, I don't like to wear out my tyres a lot, and I like a better turn in and less actual grip. Whereas people like more grip and less of a turn in, because, you know, more turn is sort of, you know, oversteer. So, but on the other side, they wear out their tyres more. So really, just depends on you. And yeah, so I've been Arava. I hope that episode was sort of helpful. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.